the evolution is that marketers have their own first party data. And in order to really drive personalized advertising, you need to really understand your consumers and tie that first party data to the endpoints where the advertising appears. And so it's really key to support the resolution of those identities to deterministic sources. This helps them tremendously to be able to reach the right consumers, to be able to measure those consumers against the metrics that they want to use to evaluate the success of their campaigns.
Welcome to the Marketing Report, a podcast created for and by marketing professionals who seek to better understand their consumers and design unique, personalized experiences that stand out in today's market. In each episode, hosts from Verisk Marketing Solutions connect you to industry thought leaders, practitioners, and experts focused on improving B2C experiences through powerful data-driven insights. It's about how we connect with our consumers and where we can partner together to do it better. This is the Marketing Report.
Welcome to the Marketing Report, where we explore the latest trends, insights, and innovations shaping the world of marketing. I'm Tim Finnigan, the Director of Product Marketing at Verisk Marketing Solutions, and we're a business unit within Verisk specializing in consumer data and insights for marketers. In this episode, my guest is Carmela Fournier, Vice President and General Manager of Data at Comcast Advertising. Carmela is absolutely an accomplished technology and advertising executive, and she has extensive experience in media measurement, advertising technology, and data privacy. We had a great conversation, and Carmela shared her insights on the evolution of measurement, why first-party data is crucial for marketers, and how identity resolution is shaping the next wave of advertising. We also got into discussion how privacy and innovation can actually work together. And then we ended the conversation with her covering the changing landscape of TV, digital media, and the power of data-driven advertising. I really hope you enjoy mine and Carmela's conversation. So Carmela, as Vice President of Data, tell me a little bit about what you're doing day to day, and then maybe sort of your path to get into this crazy media measurement world.
Sure. So my day-to-day, I oversee data for Comcast Advertising, and I'm really on the data monetization and licensing side of the house. So it's really around data solutioning, working with partners to drive the highest resolution measurement, to drive innovation in measurement, and the best audience and audience-based advertising that we can find. How I got here is kind of an interesting path, I'd say. I started out my career in high tech. I worked for a semiconductor test company, which is basically chip testing. And I was able to, move around to lots of different functional areas within the company. I first started out in installation coordination, which was basically supporting worldwide field teams to install very complicated, customized chip testing machines to the biggest chip testers in the world: Samsung, Motorola, LG, TSMC, you name it, right? You've heard them all before. And it was a very wild ride. It's a, extremely fast paced, very cyclical industry. And it was super fun and an amazing foundation for my career. I reached a certain point where I was really wondering, what are all these chips fueling? What is going on? And I wanted to get closer to the consumer. And what was going on was the consumer technology evolution, right? Cell phones, computers, chips in your cars, chips on your refrigerator. And so I moved over to Nielsen, and, the world's largest audience measurement company, and was able to get close to the consumer because they're measuring audiences, what they're watching, where they're watching, when they're watching. And so it was an amazing ride there as well. Transition from, high tech hardware manufacturing to really software development and audience measurement. And I ultimately was the de facto COO for North America audience measurement in my last role there. And what that gave me was an amazing foundation in, how Nielsen brings together the measurement and all the ingredients to create measurement, And I also got a chance to work with a lot of the startups that Nielsen acquired in order to facilitate cross-platform measurement across mobile, across online, et cetera. And so it was a great foundation to really just become an expert in that area. And then from there, I moved on to Freewheel, and I oversaw data and measurement partnerships. I moved into a role with big data. So I got my feet wet with a lot of very high quality consumer behavior data. And then I got tapped on the shoulder to do a special assignment to help Freewheel to get prepared for GDPR and CCPA. And I'll be honest, it probably wasn't the most exciting thing that I said yes to, but it's one of those career moments where you say, yeah, this is what's happening and this is what I need to like get immersed in. And so I had the opportunity to really get grounded in the privacy landscape, particularly in the US, and working with Freewheel and ad technology, understood sort of the path for every piece of data going through that technology. And that gave me a really great understanding of the data and the technology and the privacy landscape. And then I moved into my current role, which has actually transitioned or over time. I started out really focused on privacy and compliance. And then I moved into, once I really understood how, and Comcast is one of the key tenets we have is to preserve and maintain and protect consumer privacy. And so everything we do goes through a privacy review, as well as lots of different reviews to protect the consumer data. And from there, I learned really how to innovate with data and how to make sure that what we do has a privacy first approach to using data.
So Carmela, I want to get into some of the stuff you talk about, innovate and consumer behavior, but it seems like throughout your career, you've sort of tied on to, privacy, compliance, data, like some key things that are helping you now. But looking back to your days at Nielsen, how has measurement changed since then to what you're doing now? I would imagine it may have changed just a little bit.
Just a little bit, just a tiny bit, So, yeah, I mean, Nielsen the foundations were their gold standard panel, right? And they measured against broad age, gender, demographics. And that's how media was planned, bought, and sold. And things have evolved to have more marketer defined audiences. And that requires data, right? And so that also requires impression-based measurement in order to support the viewership and understanding who watched what when. And so it's this evolution of, I'll talk about just the evolution of the measurement methodology and approach, which is, digital was all about, using data, third-party data initially, cookies and et cetera, and using that for targeting. And, it created some data practices that might not have been in the best interest of preserving the consumer's privacy or protecting that data, and then marry that with something that's much more based on a panel. It's not census level. And so many of the top measurement companies now use a hybrid approach, right? Where they're understanding behavior based on their deterministic panel, and then they're tying that to big data. And so the key there is really to have, and one of the things that Comcast has really led up is the use of big data to drive innovation and measurement, both the behavioral data and the identity data. And so to tie those impressions to households, whether they're viewed on CTV, digital, or on the set-top box, on the television, and the big screen in the living room, and then to use that data, use that identity data, and use those impressions to bring together the measurement so that you have a holistic view across platforms and using those marketer-defined audiences.
So Carmela, speaking of identity, that's how we met. We were at a Coalition for Innovative Media Measurement session in New York, and you were on the panel and you were talking about identity and CTV. Just as a side, why I wanted you on the podcast is that you're introduced to come out, you're on stage, you look up behind you and they've got the big screen of the PowerPoint and there's your name, but wrong picture. And you just flatly say, I told you we have an identity resolution problem. And I don't even think I remembered what you said after that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have Carmela. But speaking of, sort of that identity piece of it, and I've heard you talk about not only identity, but that marketers need to have access to high quality first party data to be, run more efficient marketing campaigns. Can you just sort of touch on your point of view, as well as sort of what you're doing at Comcast Advertising to make sure those marketing campaigns are efficient?
Or, today marketers, the evolution is that marketers have their own first party data. And in order to really, drive personalized advertising, you need to really understand your consumers and tie that first party data to the endpoints where they're watching the advertising, where the advertising appears. And so it's really key to support the resolution of those identities to deterministic sources. And Comcast has one of the best data sources in the country, right? So we have assets that are tied to our subscribers, right? So the TV in the home, the household address where we deliver the service, as well as the internet service. And so IP and television-based audiences can be resolved deterministically, and those audiences can be authenticated against the data so that the marketers have a really good idea and understanding and accurate resolution tied back to their own first party data. This helps them tremendously to be able to reach the right consumers, to be able to measure those consumers against the metrics that they want to use to evaluate the success of their campaigns.
So, Carmela, you had mentioned about being innovative, and like at Comcast Advertising, anything you've done, how do you balance between innovation and, sort of this data privacy safe notion that those two things be compliant together or work together?
Absolutely. I think if you, use the rigor to ensure that your data practices are privacy first, it all starts with the consumer, right? And respecting their privacy and ensuring that you're abiding by all the regulations that protect the consumer. And so, you can create innovation, you can create collaboration in very privacy safe environments. Like look at clean rooms today. Clean rooms have evolved where there's enough technical controls that there's no opportunity for re-identification. And you want to make sure that, you can create those environments where everyone feels comfortable putting their data in there, and that data then becomes valuable to those marketers to understand their audiences and to drive the measurement that they need for their campaigns.
So, Carmela, I saw that you guys recently or last year had an announcement with Comscore and that signal authentication. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that is? I was really interested in sort of what you're doing there, because I've had Kelly Barrett from Comscore. I don't know if I think you guys are connected, where she was talking about a lot about media measurement and sort of the next wave. So just wondering about that particular solution.
Love Kelly Barrett. So that's awesome that you had her on the podcast. So signal authentication is a service that we offer that provides a more durable household signal for IP addresses. We know that in our own footprint, IP addresses rotate 1% per day. So over the course of a 30-day campaign, a 90-day campaign, you've got significant drop off or signal loss from the start of the campaign, from when you first onboarded that segment all the way through to the measurement, right? And that, particularly for attribution, for signals that involve IP address. And so it's really critical to ensure that you can create that durable connection to the household from that IP address. And signal authentication is that service. It provides a durable household identifier for the IP address.
And does that help? So signal loss and sort of data quality together sort of impact the ability for advertisers to understand and reach the target audience, helping sort of that challenge?
Yeah. So we've done case studies on this, and we found that when we've used probabilistic device graphs to resolve IP address to households for the same campaign for measurement, and then we use our own deterministic data, that there is a change of up to 32% increase in reach when you use deterministic data. And attribution, we've done a few case studies on that too, and there's been 20% increase when you use deterministic data, because you want to align the same household that is for the targeted advertising all the way through to attribution. And so when you can create that stable identifier and stable connection, you can see better results.
It seems like we've been, not you and I, but the world has been talking about how to better reach consumers, targeting in a privacy safe manner. Are we over the hump yet, or what do you see coming this year and in the future as far as attribution and tying that ID back to the consumer? I mean, have we solved for it and people are still talking about it, or where are we with that?
No, we haven't solved for it yet. I think
Okay.
there's not enough penetration, I'd say, of deterministic first party identifiers and deterministic data to help to drive the higher accuracy and measurement. There's a lot of progress that's been made. You cited the announcement we had with ComScore, one of the major measurement providers. We've also just signed a deal that I can't announce just yet, but with another industry player to drive accurate cross-platform measurement with signal authentication. And we're working with all the other major players, as well as attribution companies. And so if you think about the need to, the table stakes of attribution and the need to have accurate cross-platform measurement, it's super important for us to work towards that as an industry and to collaborate to drive higher resolution, higher accuracy measurement.
So you're not going to make the announcement today?
No, not today.
Okay.
I almost did, but I caught myself.
I know you did. So speaking sort of, I guess, announcement sort of, but in your experience, what are the most, say, important trends in advertising technology that you're dealing with right now? How should brands be preparing to capitalize on, what's coming?
So one of the things I'd say is brands are looking to utilize their first party data. Everyone has first party data now. And so commerce media, retail media networks, those are all super popular. And as that data goes through DSPs and programmatic pipes, it doesn't always get the same value. They're not always reaching the same consumers that would be ideal because the identity shifts and because of signal loss. We know that email address also, with a study from SIM, has less than a 50% accuracy when resolved to a household from a study that TruthSet did, sponsored by SIM. And so overall, I'd say identifiers are not as strong as they need to be when they're not backed by deterministic data. And so when you're selling as the trend moves to more programmatic executions and retail media networks of folks using their own first party data, I think it really needs to be backed by deterministic data and to work with those DSPs that have that. And so I think that's a key trend that I think we're going to see, that we want to make sure that we continue to improve upon in the future, working with companies like Beeswax that are backing their programmatic implementations with deterministic data. They have access to the Comcast data for higher resolution of identities. And I think we're going to see results. And I think that's a good trend to have, but that's where we need to move.
So Carmela, a little off topic, but the same thing. But as you talk about all these different players that you're working with and sort of the importance of things, I think back to any Lumascape you see with the hundreds, if not thousands of these players in there. How do you sort of sift through all the different players that would make sense for you to partner with or you to have conversations with to see if they could help Comcast?
One of the things I'd say is that we're super focused on measurement partners, because if you don't get measurement right, you don't get planning right, and you don't get targeting right. And so a huge focus of ours over the past several years has been to drive innovation and measurement. And so that's going to continue to be a focus for us going forward.
So when you talk about, like, sort of in your job, like how you help advertisers understand and navigate the ever-changing advanced television and digital video space, is it, as a layman, sort of, I've got a little knowledge of measurement, it seems really complicated. How do you sort of like bare bones, like, this is what we do, this is how we help, really making brands understand, like, hey, this is the benefit of, working with our model or understanding the consumer? How do you sort of get through all the sort of the high level? There's just so much information. How do you boil it down to like a couple key points that people can understand?
I'd say the key is to go back to what they're interested in doing. And a marketer wants to have a holistic view of of their media dollars and where's the best places to reach their consumers to drive awareness at the top of the funnel all the way down to purchase behavior at the bottom of the funnel. And so we want to work with them across the entire funnel. I think the couple key things that I would say is it has to translate back to their metrics. And so if they're driving awareness, we know that TV TV and CTV are huge for that, but you want to make sure that you're getting the best inventory with the best, the most accurate data to help to drive that.
So Carmela, could you just tell me sort of how you foresee the future of TV and digital media conversion?
Yeah, I mean, convergence is necessitated because there's so much fragmentation in viewership, and consumers are watching the programs they want, how they want, when they want. And advertisers are trying to have a more holistic view of where to best reach those consumers. And so it's incumbent upon us to have a more to support that holistic view by having audience-based impression measurement to support planning, and also to have a unified view of consumer identity across television, traditional television, as well as CTV.
Is it hard for companies that come to you and that don't have that idea who their target customer is, or is that some of the work you're doing to help them identify who their best target is?
It works both ways, right? Sometimes they come exactly with their own defined audiences. Sometimes their first party data, when they want to onboard that to drive addressable advertising, doesn't yield a large enough audience segment. And so we work with them to do some lookalike modeling or to extend that audience segment. And the other thing is really onboarding. We have planning tools that we can support addressable advertising, where they can onboard their segment and understand what programs and what content those on television that those consumers are watching, and then create a set of top programs where you can reach them. And then as the campaign is running, understand who's been exposed and who hasn't been exposed, and then create a reach extension segment so that then you can go and find those in CTV, find those consumers in CTV. So you can be much more efficient nowadays with how you manage your campaigns.
So in speaking of campaigns and audiences, what are some things that maybe the normal person wouldn't know that you guys can identify? Because that's what I always tell people, like, well, you've got, your first party data, but we can find out a lot of behavioral type attributes about them. Same thing for you guys. Are you finding anything with audiences that, hey, we didn't expect this type of audience to really love this, but it clicked through our research? I mean, stories that you can share with us?
I think that I would say that when you have access to behavioral data deterministically, and then you have a set of audiences you're trying to reach, you can understand, how, the length of time that they view, what time of day that you're best going to reach them, network, and what networks that they're tuning into. So network day parts, you can create, top 10, top 25 lists. You can also understand where they might be sampling content. So like the long tail as well. So you may also, be able to provide more insights to the marketer to reach, or to the agency that you're working with, to best reach those hard to find audiences or those niche audiences.
So thank you for being on the podcast. And the last thing is, I've got an issue with my cable for Comcast. Is there a way that you can get, or is that not you?
Yes. Yep. I can get to the number. You sound like my mother.
Had a hard hat in the
I think everyone who works at a cable company, whether it's Charter or Cox or Comcast, you have a parent or a relative that is in footprint, and they call you up, whether you work in advertising or you work in,
That's what I asked the guest to not just describe what she does, but what she tells her family, what she does at Christmas. And she's like, oh, that's a good way to put it, because this is what I tell them I do. Well, Carmela, thanks for giving time to us and really sharing your knowledge and expertise on the world of CTV and media measurement. So thank you again.
Thanks, Tim. It was great to be on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Marketing Report. This show is brought to you by Verisk Marketing Solutions, an organization created to help CMOs and their partners improve the reach, timing, relevance, and compliance of every consumer engagement. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the Marketing Report wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the show notes for more information.